Sunday, on Sunday, we bring one thing for the cut and one. But maybe we can bring like 2 into 4. Like we bring one from Cascia and you bring one from here, and it's enough. Then we share. Okay. Just remember to bring this one.
I have this also.
Okay. And the sampling film. Okay. They expect us between 4 and 10.
It's good.
And if we arrive later, they will receive it, but we have to tell them before. We can find a way, the best way to.
We will stay here for the event.
What?
For the you
knowledge
do
sharing.
the knowledge share here outside. Where?
I don't mind. You want to do it? You want to do it outside?
How do you feel about that? Because I felt comfortable here.
Okay.
Okay, we can do it here. I don't mind.
Well, I mean, when I was preparing my stuff, for me it was more comfortable to stay here because I was with all the walls.
With walls.
With
walls.
I feel a bit safe.
With the also it was nice when Giannis did.
Yeah.
So it
Maybe
was,
the sun is comfortable, but we are here, so not a bit.
so no, take more time. Okay, let's start. Tim, you join us or you cannot?
Oh no, I can't join you. I just write the start to write.
Water.
I love that cup. Keep calm and eat ice cream.
Gelato. Have gelato.
So I told him maybe I bring one cut like thing to cut from Cascina. You bring one from here for the dobro for the weekend. Bring one, and then between the 4 we can wait to use them together. Okay. Ready.
Is it okay? No, I'm not.
Silvia, devo iniziare a fare il fine settimana sopra la mente, ok?
Le verdure, tutte le cose, le robe, eccetera.
Però il computer di là è questo. Le verdure lasciare qua, tu prenditi le tue e le mie lasciare nell'appartamento.
E basta. E poi i soldi che mi sono avanzati della cosa.
Quindi devi guidare adesso.
Perché non vorrei.
E tutte le ricevute possibili.
Le ricevute sono su quel foglio insieme a quel foglio. Allora.
Yeah, you're right. It changes when you are here like
I think where I will put my.
Where is the document?
Ecco.
Oh, una copia di tutto quello di cui abbiamo bisogno.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Come va?
Quindi il bollettino è 70 euro, che è quello della tasca.
Sì, benissimo.
Poi
Benissimo.
questi sono 30 per
bellissimo.
poi il
One participant in Bible Digital, I guess you know.
I'm the happiest one here. I'm just like. And Fabrizio told me that he has 3 participants that will be here for sure. So I don't need anyone else.
Yeah, because one of us, you participate and you was the last. Great!
I like it.
No, vabbè, lo sanno che le marche da bordo
Some
vanno
question
messe,
of
quelle lì lo pagano.
the end of the
I
year.
was just talking to Flavio that I'm so disappointed that only my projects are not working well. But you're doing everything okay.
il resto
I was so disappointed and now I have
Yeah.
Flavio, did I told you that I have as a participant for Bible Digitale?
Yes! How many?
One, but it was like he's perfect. He's Italian. He is into
Because
digitalization.
this is
And he
check
just
Marco, can you give me more?
we can check there.
Yeah, up.
No,
No.
Lì.
Whiteboard. Yes.
Ok, fa chi?
Sorry.
Quindi facciamo il calcolo 150 meno.
Ok.
I think so.
Allora,
But
No, economia sommai tutte queste cose.
No. I don't know because I never watched the email.
Wait, it says you can now access your level in Italian
Tu
before
mi devi 116 mi devi
Ah,
dare
really like that?
33
I don't know.
e
That is for us for
54.
the course.
Yeah, I think it's Fabiano will answer that.
Oh,
Because it's for the
no, it's in my email.
your own.
No.
Really? No. Okay.
Activate your account. Maybe until 15 we should activate the account.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I was reading that actually.
Ok, cos'è 55 però? Cioè, lo stesso.
Yeah.
Non c'hai 2 pezzi e 2 centesimi? Quindi evidentemente ti hanno fatto pagare 55.
Però io non ho capito perché. Io ho messo i soldi.
No, but when you are ready to start, you say it and everybody listen to you.
Yeah, I'm ready to start. I was
So,
waiting.
don't wait because I can do it.
Ah, okay. Oi.
Ok, via via.
Okay.
Quindi c'è questi.
No, io mi metto soltanto le cose che abbiamo pagato, questi qui, mo ci penso
That's
io.
done.
Tu,
No.
you can start, don't think at me, I'm doing something, ok?
Okay. Okay. Perfect. You want to close the door or something? So, that's my water. I need that support, emotional support. My water, yes. It's emotional support.
Oh, okay. Doesn't feel like water, but okay.
Not that fun.
Just because that bottle reminds him about the time.
Remind me to myself.
Okay.
Okay, guys, let's begin. A long time since I don't do a workshop. My memory is phonetically, but yes, I think I'm ready. So, in the day of today, yes, I don't know if that redundant. I want to explain an approach from environmental sociology that is my field in some way, in my specialization in sociology. And it's about the ethical relationship between the human being and nature. Okay, so I'm going to put you in context why I think this is a very interesting thing to know and to think about it. And the context we are living right now is the next. That we are facing an environmental mental crisis right now in the world, as you know. Is manifest climate change as lack of natural resources. Okay, but I'm going to do a little introduction about this. Why we are in this point right now? I'm going to do this little introduction before proceed to the ethical approach. So, when this started, the beginning, let's say, it was in this point, was the point on the industrial revolution. Okay, I think every one of you knows what I'm referring. And the born of the liberalism, this economical and political and social doctrine. Okay, this both things give the birth of the capitalism system. Okay,
I didn't understand what
Liberalism.
liberalism.
liberalism, yes, and the industrial revolution.
Okay.
Industrial revolution.
Big.
Created, gave birth to the capitalism, and the capitalism mostly I would like to say that the liberalism was the doctrine, the ideological doctrine of the capitalism itself. So in that sense, one of the principles about the doctrine is the faith into the rational thinking, the rationalization, that's one. And another point, it was like we understand that economic growth equals to human progress. So here is the beginning of the end. we will say. These two principles that we assume as human beings since the 19th century. Okay. So, what happens in that sense? Science and technology is totally becomes like tools for human beings to develop. We use science, we use technology to exploit and explode nature in our benefit and to satisfy our needs. So, in that sense, this is the ideological context that we've been having, ideological also material context that we've been having from these 200 years, okay? Or there's a change in some point in the 80s, in the 70s. Some people discovered that this model that we've been having, this conceptualization of the progress of human being, was wrong at some point because we are destroying nature and we've been having hazard problems that way, no? And it was because after, I don't know if you know it, but after the Second World War, there was a period of economic growth, 30 years, very strong period of growth.
The boom.
Yeah, the boom, the golden age of the capitalism. And this have created a lot of externalities in that sense. So here we have different approaches, like we have one of, I commented one day in the permaculture course, that is, it's called the, I have it here. Yeah, see the entropy law and the economic process, that this perspective assumes that the economic progress, is not illimitated. And what happens? We have this input, okay, we create manufactured products, but the problem is the output is not like this, like permaculture. Maybe we would assume the output will be like this. This is externalities. So what happened? We don't know what to do with the externalities. Maybe we will sell the externalities is garbage in general, waste of energy, because entropy is the second law of thermogenesis that says that every process of creation of energy bring entropy with itself. Entropy is the part of energy that cannot be used anymore. So in that sense, it happened the same with the economic process, with the productive process of the system. What can we do with this? We can sell the garbage to China, also, maybe we can do that. But it won't solve anything. Maybe we can throw the garbage into the moon with a rocket. So, but for the moment we don't have any answer. So it's a big problem. So what happens? Like, economic development.
Sorellina, questa tastiera, this tastiera.
Just
The right one.
just go away from there.
Okay, so what happened? Economic growth equals externalities in that sense. More economic growth, more externalities. So we have to change the approach because Earth have like a capacidad de carga,
Capacity of
capacity of load that the externality that can support, can hold in that sense. So it's not illimited, as we said.
limit.
Not limited. Limit. So we have
Limitless,
limit.
yes.
Ah,
Because I
Yes, I
don't.
think it's
Sorry.
like a spinization of the
We
term.
don't,
Unlimited.
unlimited. Okay, yes, it's
Unlimited.
funny say so.
Yes.
Okay.
It was
Sorry.
about to ask about that.
Okay,
because I
okay,
don't understand.
unlimited. Sorry, in that sense.
Limitless. It's not.
And also, what happens? So, this is a concept that is
Should I have this?
concept related with nature. Okay.
always.
But another perspective, like Thomas Piketty, a very famous economist, has said that the capitalism process is also equals to a bigger amount of inequalities, in a social and economical inequalities. So what happened here is not only nature, it's also ser humano, human being. So the system that we have right now is consisted basically in an exploitation, thank you, exploitation of nature and human being. There's a nexus here between the two things.
Exploitation and
So what happens? A lot of authors, some of the most important, the authors that give birth to the environmental sociology, they're called Cato Motulla, two Americans. They say that, okay, we have to rethink on the way we trade with nature, the way we proceed, because this is unsustainable in some way. So that's the importance of creating like an ethical approach, ethical approach to this conflict. What happened here? What I explained is one of this ethical approach. Okay, this will be the head. Is the human exceptionalist paradigm, or is the dominant paradigm in nowadays that we have. Okay, so I'm going to represent it more visually. I think you
Yeah,
will
perfect.
understand it.
Because I don't understand human.
It's okay.
No, the second one.
Okay,
the word.
forget this because I'm going to explain it.
Okay.
So in that sense. And this is important. Okay, this is an introduction, this is like a contextualization. Okay, we have a very grave environmental situation. What can we do? We need to remodulate the relationship with nature.
Mhm.
So we imagine that we have, you have to imagine because I can't. Okay. I'm going to deal with the same color.
yes. Okay.
Now we have this and this. You can see it in this way, but you also can see it in this way. Because it's an interval. Okay? On the one hand, you have anthropocentrism.
Them.
Anthropocentrism. Okay? I'm going to explain what this concept means. And in this hand you have biocentrism. Okay, here you have a weak approach and a strong approach. Okay, you can imagine here also. Anthrop and biocentrism. It will be like an space in the middle.
Anthropocentrism.
Okay. Anthropocentrism is the approach that we been having this the whole history, but it gets more stronger during the 19th century. It was this conception.
Starting from like the religious, like
Sí.
it starts
Sí.
back
Yes,
into
exactly.
civilization and
Yeah, started in the ancient Greek with the discussion of Platon and this, but it was more deeper with the religion thing. Or let's say, only for simplifying, because I'm doing a big simplification of this process. For a better understanding, let's say that it gets more bigger, this conception, since this point, since the Industrial Revolution and the liberalism. What happened in anthropocentrism? Para que no ser humano, human being hierarchize nature. Okay? So it will be like this.
like the human being is at the top of the hierarchy and nature is down.
Okay.
This hierarchic.
Yeah, totally. What happens here? That how we develop science, we develop technology, we can instrumentalize nature to provide us benefits, like you instrumentalize it and is satisfaction on needs. I'm sorry if you can.
Mhm.
Okay, but this is what happens. Okay, so this I'm going to say the 4 approaches that we have here in this ethical conceptualization of nature. You have here on the one hand the head is the human exceptionalist. Then no, then humanist paradigm.
Okay.
What does it mean?
Human exceptionalist paradigm.
Is this see?
Paradigm.
Is the dominant paradigm that I was saying, and is this conceptualization? Is this the hierarchy? Human being instrumentalized, and hierarchy nature to its benefits. So nature is only something that exists to in order to satisfy the needs of human being.
Mm-hmm.
Only that. Only
Clear.
that. Let's imagine something. Let's imagine that we are facing the climate change. Okay? We have different approaches to the climate change. This approach will see like climate change is a problem that interferes with the economic growth. For us, the important thing is grow more economically. Why? Because, as I said, economic growth is equal to human progress. So we need to grow more and grow more and grow more. What happened with climate change? Climate change is a very big obstacle. So they promote like an rational strategy to face the climate change. They say like with technology, innovations in technology through science, we will beat this climate change only, but without attacking the idea of economic growth. Economic growth has to follow the same. Always.
Green capitalism.
Yes, in some way, because we also have this approach more on the weak side. As I said, imagine that this is an interval, okay? The rational strategy will be like here. Like, I don't care about nature, I only need to grow more. And grow more, and through science we will make it, but the growth is not a possibility here. Okay? So then, into this anthropocentrism, you have approach more neutral, more moderate, I will say, and it's the weak anthropocentrism. And what this approach says, this says the same. If we destroy nature, it will be impossible to satisfy human being. So, what change? We give nature, and this concept I think is very interesting, extrinsic value. We will differentiate here between extrinsic and intrinsic. I don't know if that's the translation in English, I think so. Extrinsic, what does it mean? It means that human being articulate the value that nature have. How can I explain it better? It's like nature doesn't have value only for being nature, for that. Like, we put that value in order to satisfy our needs. Okay, I think I can explain it better.
So what you mean is that, like, for example, in the right part, nature has only a value as something that is for the human beings to use.
Yeah, totally.
And in the other one is the same, or just
No,
in this other one,
this
nature,
in the wake approach,
nature has a value itself, but we also use it.
No, in this approach it will be, we need to take care of nature, we need to do things a little bit different,
Okay.
because if the climate change came, we won't be humans, we will disappear, no? So we need to think another way of art, but without getting out of our system.
No.
The system has to be the same.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
And
It's not too
ethical,
strong,
and
but
the important thing is human being. So nature is only there to satisfy our needs. Here in this approach you find the sustainable development.
Yes. So
Development.
the in this sense, like nature is important. Like the other, like
Oh,
we
it's
don't
very
fucking
important.
care.
It is.
Is this one is important, but just because it's served,
Because-
it's something that we need.
Yes. So we have to build these electric cars because they are very important to the nature and to reduce the pollution. No? But we are not going to think in
But also
beyond that.
Not to use card, for example.
No.
We can
Exactly. So
Like
it's
to
like
the world.
How could you?
it's like a very moderate. Okay. This weak approaches is like a more moderate will be here. Okay. This weak anthropocentrism will move in this sense. This is the strong one. And then there's like a point of reflection, like, I mean, it's an interval, can be anywhere, okay? Then you have biocentrism. Biocentrism promotes something different that I will explain here. Is the new ecological paradigm, okay? Is the opposition to the head, to the human exceptionalist paradigm. I will explain it now. But I want to explain first what is the weak biocentrism. The weak biocentrism is the next step to this. Okay, let's imagine that it's in this sense. Like you start here. Okay, so we are here right now. As you see, this is the most moderate approaches. No, not very radical. So what's the difference? You will ask, you will wonder. What's the difference between the weak anthropocentrism and the weak biocentrism? This is the position. Intrinsic values. What does it mean? Now nature have value itself. For example, animals. Okay, these movements towards toward the rights of animals, like in Spain. In Spain, we have the tradition to in a piazza to kill bulls. No, it's art for us. No, I'm sure that you have heard about this sometimes. No, the torero, corrida de toros, the toreo. No, so these movements promote that the bulls have they are animals, they are human beings, and they have the right to live only for the fact that they are human beings.
Not,
Okay.
not human,
No,
just
animals.
living beings.
Living beings.
Living beings.
A human being is not yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, but we understand
Sorry.
you.
It's,
The main point is
yes, it's different to do this in English. I mistake words. So yeah, this is the only difference. But it's the same in some way as the weak anthropocentrism. Nature is very important, and nature have value with itself. Animals, only for being living things, they have their own moral rights. They have a moral status. But we are not going to change the whole paradigm. We are not going to change the whole ethics, and we are not going to change the system. So here is when it comes the new ecological paradigm, new ecological paradigm, and this tries to think beyond everything. So it's here, in this part of here. This is the most, imagine that these two are the more radical sides of this. So in this sense, they say that the head, this paradigm, has to be substituted.
Substitute.
Change it. Has to be changed. Okay. Okay. Change. Why? Because him only think in short term. Only think in the benefits, the economic benefit that we have, but we don't think about the long-term consequences that this use of nature that we are doing. No? So the opposition, the net will think in a long term.
It's also like change completely the view because when it's biocentrism, the human being is at the same level.
Yes.
Yes, also I forgot
As
to
the-
put that.
There
No?
is no
Well,
theory.
biocentrism is that, no?
Like
It's not
like the circle.
So that it disappears, this hierarchy disappears. Now human being and nature are in the same level. This is an horizontal relationship, this is a vertical relationship between the two. So what's the aims of the net? The net is aiming two things. The transformation or nation, well, two transformation better said, of the consciences and the system itself. And the concept of system used to be like very abstract, but it tries to remodulate the system at different levels. Economic way of product, how we product and everything, how we grow or how we can degrow in that sense. The cultural way also, this ethic approach is a cultural perspective also. How we develop as society, so it will be more related to the concept itself. And also the political, because in the political system, we have the capacity to change things, to implement more changes. So, in this sense, I think that will be all. Okay, this is conclusion. So, we're going to summarize everything. We're having this environmental crisis. It's a problem that we have to face this century, a very huge problem. So we understand how this happened and also why the explanation is this approach. We approach nature always with this vertical relationship. So maybe one solution has to be change the relationship that we have to nature, to move more from here to here, to the biocentrism, if we really want to change things. What's the problem? Nowadays we are here. We won't abandon, never, for me. This is only your opinion. It's very hard to abandon this, the anthropocentrism. The human being, we have this capacity of being rational. Well, this is in our countries against us also. We're rational, so we think that we are better than nature, because the rest of part of nature can be rational, we can. So, a rational living beings will always want to satisfy our needs, because we are still animals. But we have now the tools to do it. Always. Also, we can instrumentalize this rationality to move here. Yes, we can do it. Well, it's a very long way to achieve it. So for the moment, we are still here. Maybe we will more to here also, in some ways, in a different approach, like with the animals are more here in some way, yes. But with the economical system are more here, and we still give
And
nature
the
this.
companies are still there.
Totally.
No.
And the big powers are still here.
No.
So what's the problem? What's the big problem?
Corporation is there, the society is there. There is some people, and it is really like a small part of the
Marginal.
society. No.
That's the thing. If we really want to transform everything, all the society have to move in this sense. What's the problem? That the big powers, the social agents that have the ability to change the things are here.
Yes.
Because they have money there, and
Yes.
if they lose their money, they will not do anything for us. Because they
Also, they are totally self-absorbed in this idea. Also, economic growth is human progress. Also,
It's because nature is something free that you can get and exploit, as well as you can exploit human being, and by exploitation you have capitalism, because you can have like an extra money that doesn't come from nowhere, that comes from exploitation actually. And so if you want to get rich somehow, like a big company, you must be in that approach. Don't care and at all about nature. It's the only, of course, if you want to maintain that power and that amount of money.
totally. And that's the thing we can begin a
Empowerment.
discussion about this. I mean, we can begin a discussion about this. Also, you can make questions if you didn't understand anything, but it would be nice in that sense. Sorry.
This are for this phase, four different phases. But I haven't understood really well the third part.
The third part.
Because I know that it varies animals, but how is it different from the last one?
From the strong biocentrism.
No, the weak and the strong, how are they both?
I mean, as I told you, you have to think it as an interval. Okay, it's an interval that you move from 0 to 10, for example. Okay, so these two approaches, these weak approaches, both from anthropocentrism and biocentrism, moves more into a moderate way of seeing things. So this approach, okay, they give nature this intrinsic value, but we are not going to change the system.
So is it like recycling? Maybe there.
Also-
Recycling would be there, I think, but there would be. Let's be vegan because we don't want to kill animals, blah,
Also-
and then at the end maybe you keep buying like
I
things
think
that comes from the other part of the world,
Yeah.
but you think you really care like about animals and you're really into not pollute, blah, blah, and then you still do like
Totally.
But
the
you-
tires.
Totally.
You buy,
I think-
you buy
Food from
vegetables,
supermarkets.
yes. Soya from
where
but you think you're really environmentalist
Da.
and really
Da.
like wow.
Yeah.
that is
Okay, that is clarified.
Okay, so in that sense, I think a very good exercise could be that. Could be understand different movements that we have nowadays, understand maybe or think where it could be in this interval, like permaculture, this approach. How do you think will be permaculture?
for me, it's mostly in the fourth one, at least because we are trying to make nature to reproduce, I don't know, to
Yes, just for
and
the start
not
now.
only take something but give something
Yeah.
to nature and not
Very
use technology but ourselves. I don't know, only organic. I don't know. I feel like we're doing only organic thing. I don't know. Compost everything.
I think also so when we get into the cycle, like permaculture cycle, we'll get to
The new EP.
and it can be sustainable.
Yeah, and if I understand correctly, also behind permaculture there are also an ideology, a social ideology of changing society.
These are
And definitely this place permaculture in the force, because permaculture movement reject most of the time the first
what do you say?
the anthropocentrism.
Or the macro
Rejects anthropocentrism.
macro reject.
Permaculture.
As it rejects.
Yeah.
Totally. I agree. And also I think there's also very interesting thing that I said, this approach of the entropy. Also that I said, this input and output. I think permaculture, the big difference is like we have an input, okay? We have an input, we eat, it's an input. And we have externalities, we have garbage. Permaculture understands that the output could be an input at the same time.
Yeah.
So this is where it changes. This is the key of the question. That with externalities, we can create energy. So you break that loop, and you create a new cycle.
Not with the anthropocentric approach because
You can do circular economy and place it there with the circular approach, for example, like this approach of having inputs and outputs, you can have it also there and understanding like, okay, we are trying to do this sustainable development, but we still have like big factories, we produce big things, and we try to use like a bit of the externalities and reduce them, and you're like, wow, you're really into circular economy because you're reducing this, and you produce tons of shit, and
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, I'm really proud because 1% of this shit I reduced, and I'm a circular economy. This would be like
Sustainable
something
development.
there.
It's
Yes.
like that, exactly like that, like this. Or maybe the diesel cars that now have this CO2 or more ecological. This is anthropocentrism.
No.
Because we don't want to get rid of the diesel cars because they are useful. Not only cars. I mean, big machineries work with diesel. Diesel is contaminant fact.
No.
But we need it. We need it because satisfies the needs of the human being. So it will be always yes, approach.
Because yes, that's like we talked about after lunch. Like we don't want to devolve.
Devolve,
Like
Uh-huh.
evolve. No, we don't want to go back. Like because in that fourth one, we wouldn't have like the luxuries that we have now. Like. Because we have to adjust ourselves to nature, like to be more like nature, and to because in
Come back
that
to
way,
be nature.
Yes.
because of nature.
because in that way we can do the full cycle. But if we have like things that if we produce things that cannot be like that cannot complete this the cycle like that. Yes, that's it. But yeah, I think that we have to.
We have a lot of work to do, guys.
It's also a work
Yeah.
of, oh, you wanted to add something?
So,
It's a work of compromises.
Society itself has its ego, and I think that is the thing that we should. We built it to protect ourselves from nature to survive, but now that pattern doesn't work, and we are now safe. We now can do like. It's not like we are in that survival mode when we were in history. Now we can change, yeah.
And I wanted to add something. I
Nice.
remember what I wanted to add, that we already, I think, talked about that on our permaculture workshops. When the people, all the human beings now, think that they need all that what we think we need, but in the end of that cycle, we see that our needs are not that big. For we have only few needs, and we can do it even without all that progress that we
Yeah.
have. And
But
sometimes
Yes,
people-
But I know-
they are more like industry needs
Yeah.
created by like the big companies
Yes.
that like
They
it's
also-
something created into us as a
Artificial
need,
needs,
that
let's
artificial
say.
need.
They also exploit
Exploit.
because they know psychology of human
Yes.
beings. They exploit how our brain works. They do that a lot in the first in that one. Yeah. So that's why we have artificial needs.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that would say like I can do like with more I can lower my what you said
Mhm.
I can I can live differently, but yeah, but people
I cannot live without Wi-Fi, guys.
there are people that would judge me like because I do that, and they would say like I would never do that, like I cannot do it like that. They cannot they don't want to open to that possibility because they feel like this
They
works
feel
good.
they will lose
for-
a lot, but then when you go more into that direction, you understand that the things that you leave behind, they are not like you didn't really need it, and you're like, okay, well, okay, I really can live perfectly without having these tons of shit that I
Yeah.
buy, and maybe I have to work less because I need to buy less, and then like you change the whole life itself. That it doesn't, because it's a whole, like for me is like the cycle that you are into like hamster, like
The other
in
one.
this
Yes. It's also
wheel.
red
That you're like,
labyrinth.
you work so much in order to get money to buy things to like
you don't need
to regenerate, to just to give to the to this to feed the capitalist system.
Remember
But
about this, the nexus between exploitation, nature, human beings.
and it's not
Totally
just the more evident exploitation that it's of course in the in the third world countries as we call them, and it's horrible that definition.
No, I know.
Okay, like it's so evident that we exploit people there, but we ourselves, like we are exploited by the system and by the consumistic approach, because we are just consumers for these big companies to use to consume. Now, before it was more with the products. Now it's more with our time on the
yes.
social medias and on these things. So it's like always like exploiting.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to say like for me this is challenging professionally, because I would like to contribute to this and to raise awareness, like to try and to try with youth, because
And here we have the possibility to be the how
facilitators.
no, to be the example, because we are living that now in Pescina Crocetta, so it's cool to be
To be the bees.
yeah.
To be
So,
the bees.
yeah,
The flying bees from there, like.
So, but it is challenging because also in my field I know that people who do not want help, you cannot help them. Like if they don't feel the need, you just can put some seeds or some with your talk, with your like
Yeah,
you
the
can.
seeds are the key.
No.
Because I did when I started this, like my path into this approach that I understood, okay, anthropocentrism like is not working. I was like keeping saying to people, this and that,
Yeah.
that doesn't
No.
work at all.
You lose energy on you.
And it's the only strategy is, well, you as with your own life, you change your own habits, you change your own things. You're an example for people. You talk about your like what you do and what you
How do
think,
you feel?
how do you feel, and then like this seed, you are putting this little seed. If you don't put, anything grows. But if you put the seed, then the next time they hear something about it, then maybe in the radio, they hear like something you said, and it's you create a connection in the brain. Okay, this topic starts to have more relevance and then more relevance, but it's because it develops inside them. It's not when you try to say you should do this, that,
Of course.
cannot work at all. So it's more, I think the best thing is with the example and with this just
And
talking.
also, yes, what I found also is by example. For me, it was like when I see the example of a person that does something that I like, I feel inspired, and that is the seed. Like,
Yes.
so yeah, so
But
I want to be inspired.
practically, what are the steps that someone would take to get from the first to the fourth?
That is the challenging part.
Da-da-da.
I mean, I think it's also a very sectorial thing. I mean, you can be in a different stages regarding to the topic.
Yes.
itself. So
Yes,
when
it's
I
not,
want to
depends
comment-
on
I want
like
to
maybe on
comment
one
before-
thing you are more
Done.
Maybe
there
for
and
example, let's think about animals. It's an interesting topic. What happens? A lot of people love his dogs, his cats. They're beautiful because they are domesticated, because they are for us. in a way.
and it is there.
Well,
For anthropocentrism.
Yes,
It's
it's
Totally.
in the wall.
It's
Totally,
in the
it
first
could be
Yes.
It could be one or two.
in some
We appreciate them
places,
because of the
but
company.
they will be like, fuck the pigs. I mean, I'm going to eat the pigs because pigs are designed for eating. Like that, I hear that. Personally,
porca non si spreca niente. Mi sei in Abruzzo.
you lose it, man. You lose.
You're into your free time like this?
Meant to confuse us.
Okay.
Ah,
You're
yes.
trying to distract us from the topic. Okay, what else?
Okay.
It was a citation. Citazione.
Can I continue, Paco?
I remember that.
Sorry.
I like
She
the
called the citation.
Ah, yes.
We have everything here, so yeah.
Professional.
Someone is commenting about this new presents arriving. Everything was live.
Ah, ho splittato.
Topic.
Ok, e ho quasi finito di pulire tutto, manca veramente poco. Soltanto il gas praticamente manca.
Quella è la cosa di with the animals. For example, this concept, no? I love my dog, so I will eat lamb, pigs, chickens, cows, because they are designed for eating.
But when Chinese eats a dog,
And
then it's a problem.
well, I mean, it's also relative cult.
Yes,
That
cultural
in
is
there.
related, but the concept
Yes,
is that
also.
you care about just the things that are
Yeah.
functional to you
Yeah,
and not
totally,
like
totally.
just in general.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah, but
living
for
being.
me it's interesting also when we see that like cultural differences, we react like,
Yeah, also it's
and
crazy.
it
You're like,
and it
eating a
yes,
dog.
and
Yeah.
it doesn't enters our mind that if we eat
Somebody
a
from
cow,
India is
a cow,
eating a cow.
yes, or
Yeah.
a pig, you know.
Yeah, because we are here. Because these animals is something useful for us. Because I love my cat because, or my dog because it's the only one who loves me or something like that. No, some people they prefer a dog before a human, something like that. Why? Because dogs are domesticated. Because you can
But you
use.
give them food and
No, because you are the master also. Sometimes, no.
yes.
But I lost. Fuck, I wanted to say something else.
Yes, like you can
Ah,
be
yeah,
more
I remember.
into something with one category of your life. You can be more into one point, and with another you are more into
See, also,
another.
well, I remember about the topic of animal because I think it's interesting. Sylvia said before that this conceptualization, this dominant paradigm was before what religions, and it's true with animals. In the Christianism, it says very clearly. It was one part of the Bible. I don't know which part, but it says something like animals and things that nature provides are there only for serving the human being. Like Bible says that, like literally. You can look for it. I think I have it there. So in that sense, yes, this is like very ancient history that is totally
Like
attached to our culture.
Is changing a bit. Like this Pope actually is a bit changing
Yeah, also,
the concept
also.
of how
Yeah.
religion, like Christianity, deals with nature because
Also.
he wrote some.
Or how you should read like Bible or no, it's like the Lutero did this in some way also. So as you say that, you can see that this paradigm is like very ancient in some ways, totally attached to our culture, no? But with animals, okay, you can be here, but you also can be vegan. So mostly here, like okay, no, I won't eat animals, I won't, because okay, they have their own value, no, they intrinsic value. So I won't because I want to change. Maybe you will be more in this new ecological approach, or maybe you will be here. You will be with this idea when you will buy your iPhone, your 1,000 euro iPhone, and you will buy clothes in Bershka.
Yes,
And you
and
will
then you're
you will
vegan.
use the most contaminating car, polluting car that exists. I mean, you will be full of contradictions. So maybe you will be more here or more here even.
If
So-
I think about me, I'm really low, because I'm everything, and I'm not even a vegan. So at least I could be the vegan.
And maybe
not
you're
the
less
bad.
consumistic than one person that is vegan, but at the same time he does shopping every week with thousands of clothes. So each
Yeah.
one of us does his own like thing. In one thing it's more there, one thing is more there, one thing is more there. Like
Yeah.
it's just
So for answering your question, I think the really important thing is to be aware of the things, or to be aware of this, understand it. and trying to get more knowledge, trying to study more, or trying to understand how this cycle works in some way, and what can you do for change it? What things you have the power to change in your life or moving more into the direction you really want? You can stay here if you want. That's the problem that I sorry
No,
about it.
we are not supporting that idea.
Or what,
Stay there in
No,
the
no.
in.
Oh, you want to go?
no, after when you finish this.
No, but also I
that's-
was thinking about this. Also, you can look it from a sociological approach, and you can look it from the distance of you say more a macro, more about the institutions, the social institutions that we have, the international relationships, the countries, European Union, or more a micro
Yeah,
level,
the
no
global
more.
and local.
Yes, global and local, totally. That's it. Global and local. Maybe in a local way, a lot of people can move this. No? We are moving more in this direction.
Yeah.
But what happened with this? I think the real problem is this. And yes, maybe you act here, and maybe you will create some synergy, and it will change something. But I think the real weight is here.
As for me, I can I
I
say
don't.
No.
what I think. For now, all that macroeconomy is thinking about what is economically important, what will be economical growth, and how it will be good. But if everybody in the micro places will start only the permaculture and we will develop that as our values, and that all big company they look for our values and they will see that our values are like there, so we can change something. Maybe it will be a really long process, but when the big company sees that nobody wants that because we don't like buying food and it will not come give money, so in the end it is possible, but we need to seed and seed and seed and seed and seed.
Yes, in that sense, you will change the production of the company, but the company will be the company. So you will move into this, but you are not going to reach this. Why? Because this assumes a change of the system. Change. No, it's not only companies, it's beyond that.
Yes. What I wanted to add is that like they will kind of instrumentalize your new like values and your like. So in some ways it's good because, for example, now you go to a supermarket and there's a big organic part. Okay, you say, oh wow, something is changing because our needs are different, and they are seeing, we don't want to eat anymore a lot of food with pesticides, and they change. But in some other ways, they will always find a way to keep it in the status quo of
Mhm.
exploitation of nature and human beings. Because, for example, organic food is
It's more here, no?
we're there.
Organic food is there.
Unlikely.
Yeah.
Like organic food, if it's locally produced with it can be here.
See,
But it's with big companies.
It
Yeah.
always
With the
been-
monoculture, just one
the
single
monoculture
thing.
of soy.
Big,
Organic
big tractors, blah blah, and then you put less pesticides, and you have a thing
Mhm.
that says that you're organic. You're still into this, so
Yeah.
you're changing from there to that. Some companies, but it's not a big change, of course. But for me, I have a bit more like a positive, optimistic
Yeah.
view
See.
of
You
Or
you
somehow-
can contrast two different approaches. I have more a pessimist. She's more optimist, and I think it's good. I think it's good to.
I mean,
It's
because for me,
interchange,
this micro and macro, so this is the big and this is the local. Like, I live some years ago the idea that this can be changed, really radically changed. I know that can be changed just from here to here.
Mhm.
That is the maximum it can reach because they don't have any advantage to do this. They don't have the interest to do that
Mhm.
because it doesn't give this extra range of money that comes from exploitation. So the only possibility for changing, for me, I support, of course, like the movement Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion, that tries to change the macro, but I think their effort should be redirected more into going to change the local context, because That you can really have the power to change it. If you are one person or even better a community, so we are already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. We're 5, 6. We're 6. So we are 6, and we build a community. We are creating a little economy in our place. We don't support the supermarket, we don't support that. And we also organize events, and we invite people, and people open their mind a little by little, like as a little point of like light. This light will be here, but will like contaminate around.
I heard
And
that.
another light is there, and like this light, and the people that arrives from on the dark side, let's say, see this light and create another light, and this is really happening now.
I heard about that theory of because someone else suggested it. In some time at past to create like not to go against the system, but to create alternative system that will rise like and grow along the system
Yes.
that exists.
And for me, it's not. For me, it's not like it's somehow not another system, but it will be a local
it will
based.
be
It will be another system. But what I mean is that you don't change. Well, it could be a big system, but for me, if you do reproduce these, then in the macro scale and the national scale, it cannot be managed because local community have the power to be true to themselves because they can apply true democracy by really knowing each other, really creating things together, and not having to manage big like these big macro structures that always lead into some strange things. So it's a change of system, but I see it more as a net of little systems than a big one system.
Yeah.
Yes, I would also like to add the Vaterland. Like, if you think about it, like in the macro system, there are a few people that are handling all the other people. In the macro system, it's the rich people, and the rich are only a few. I think that we're more of them, and it's so funny that we're more in number, but we don't take this and use it as our benefit. We can outnumber.
Yeah, because we have like our eyes closed by these created needs that we think it's our needs and we need them, and we think we have freedom, but we don't have like.
And it's so sad because we're so many people and we are led by a few people, and we think we are happy and we're living our lives, and in the end we're just living our lives to what others want from us. It's so sad.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's so sad.
It's very sad. But yes, we can rebuild local communities and rebuild relationships, not based on our this is my individuality, but more into like sharing, into this also gift economy, like giving and receiving, and also the fact that okay, I have to build my house. I can build it. The community comes and help me, and then one day I will also go and help. Like, if you have the power of people together, they can do big things. Of course, if you are alone and you think to yourself as one single person, you think I don't have the power to change all of this in your life. It's harder. If you feel more as a connected net, you have more power to change.
But
So
why is dust?
why?
I explain myself. Just imagine climate change. It's a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
This is
But
the
still,
evolution of the climate change. Okay, and we are going like this. Like the agreement of Paris said that we have to reduce the emissions. Imagine that this is CO2 emissions. We have to reduce it this is CO2 emissions. It will be here. Okay, this is time. In 2020, it has to be here. In 50, it has to be here. But what happens? We have more, even more.
yes,
the problem
because the climate is in big scales, and
yeah.
the effect of what we are doing now we'll see in 50 years or even 100 years.
I mean,
So now we are seeing the effects of what we did.
totally, and
So
we are seeing that
that's
the
why.
that the effects are being really fucked up. At least in Spain, Spain is a hot spot. It's called down in the that
The
terminology.
Mediterranean.
In the Mediterranean
in
is
general.
one of the worst spots in
Yes.
Spain regarding to the consequences of climate change. We will have the worst consequences.
Desertification.
Desertification, tsunamis probably also, these storms, these very storms that we have been suffering these years that have been destroying a lot of things there. So what's the thing? With climate change, we are in this rational strategy. We want to invent a machine that invents another machine that it will invent another machine to
Usually we invent a machine to solve a problem that creates
Yeah.
another
No,
problem,
another-
then we invent another machine to
to
solve the
solve
problem that
another
creates another
problem.
problem.
We
That's
put
what we do.
like a big wall in the sun or something like that, or something that it will absorb the contamination. But we are not going to change the system. So only the last thing is a matter of time. We have time. We don't know how many time. Will be 2050 maybe. So people will say that we'll suffer the most consequences there. It's a matter of time. If we don't go to here into here, I mean, yeah, we can construct these local communities and webs and everything is beautiful. Everything is the real way to act in some way. But if we don't go here as a system, in this macro approach, it's a matter of time. You can construct it. But, I mean, nature doesn't have problems. The concept of problem is a social concept. Only a human being have problems. If climate change is come and it will be this extinction, massive extinction, nature will regenerate again. But human being
Yes.
won't be here. That's the only thing. It's
Yes, what I mean is that of course you have in all of these nice wheel, you have this factor that is climate change and all the crises that are coming. That it's a big thing that we will somehow have to deal with. But at the same time, of course, like we can. I was also desperate about okay, we are going into this ecological crisis, climate change. But if you focus on this, nothing will change because you are. Then you go into the more like desperation and
Yes.
mode and that everything is useless and buy and fuck everything. And you also like your life. You will have this negative feeling, and you will not even have like also not have a good life yourself,
Yeah.
like because you enter just this negative. As
Yeah,
most of the people are into the negative, not just because of that, but because not just because of this climate change thing, but also because we all are bombarded by information, negative information about everything.
Yes.
This over information is also not something not good for our mental health, and is not normal in the human evolution to have so many information and to get
No.
be aware of everything that happens at any time of
That's
the
why
day of
we can
every
rise
part of the
in
year.
anxiety and depression.
Yes, with the COVID and blah blah blah. So we have. That's why. But come back to the local, come back to the families, to the communities, and be more like here. I'm here, present moment, these things, and not always like into. And then climate change, and then this thing happening there and there and there and there, because you feel just impotent, like how to say, powerless.
Yeah.
And you cannot change anything, even your life, and your life you will live a bad life, you have bad influence on everybody, and this world will be just fucked up.
Yeah.
So it's not good. Like if we also think about just a personal perspective, if each one of us cares about his personal well-being and how to be well, the world will be automatically better. Like it's also a light that spreads when you are with your well-being. It's also something that is contaminates the people around you. So why to focus on that? I know that exists, but like it's a circle effect that doesn't bring to anything positive. So okay, we do our best to create our well-being and being coming back to this, to being human beings more integrated into the natural ecosystem, then okay, whatever happens, we will face it. But also, if we come back here, we have to know that this is a matter also of resilience. Like when we are here, we are dependent from these companies, and if one day, or like it will be fucked up with the supermarkets, will be less, nothing anymore in supermarkets because a crisis, whatever.
Covid.
We
Okay.
saw a little bit
We-
when
Yeah.
We know that if we are here, and if we are here, we also maybe know how to produce food. Either we know to produce our own food, grow our own food, or we support local friends and local agricultural people that are next to us that can provide us the food directly. And we know that we are a lot more resilient than people that are into the system completely. So a way to go out, it's also to protect ourselves from this crisis. It's a matter of, so coming back to to being more into this ecological balance is something good for us, for nature, and to protect us from all these crises. So it's a win-win-win situation. And so like somehow that's my answer to more or less your question. And also one thing I wanted to add is that I see this completely like somehow like reversed, because first I think that now it's, of course you can see it a linear that goes in this way, but somehow before
It's not goes
so now let's
in
say that now we are
it's not
yes,
an
yes.
arrow.
Yes, yes,
It's an interval.
yes, what I say is that now we are here, but in the past we were here.
Yes.
So like
Okay.
there are
Historic approach.
like not just historic, but also not just in the past, but some populations are like indigenous population
Yeah.
are still somewhere between here and here, and or here, like, and so we can see it as something that we already know as human beings how to live that way. Of course, the good part is that now we did a whole evolution of a lot of in cultural sense, and we have all this knowledge from here, and together, like combining all our development as intelligence and literature, blah 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 blah, and then the knowledge from the past that we knew how to live in completely balanced with nature, we can really create a future that is more satisfying at the same time as ecologically balanced. So it's somehow I see it as a degrowth. So this it's saying like growth is the best thing. Here it's let's degrow, let's take out everything that is not necessary, but let's take something that is good from that. It's not that we come back to when we were hunters and we don't have any Wi-Fi. Okay, each one of us, if we use consciously one technology specifically, maybe Wi-Fi is important for us, or maybe sometimes it's important to use that specific machinery for or car for some purpose. Each one of us can do compromises, and being here, it means like you try your best to not to pollute, but just sometimes you do little compromise, and you find your own way of being more balanced with everything. So it's not a matter of, oh, I will never come there. Okay, you still like do little when it's necessary, when you need it, when it's good for you, and you find your way. And yes, also because in here, human beings are completely separated from nature. They are two things, different things. But in the past, what is nature? We are nature. We are animals. If we already rethink about this concept, and we think ourselves as nature, then it will be easier to come back here.
Yeah.
Because also for this conceptualization of separation is the basis to create the separation between human being and nature, allowed it the exploitation of the same nature. Because if we see that as something separated, we can exploit it. If we think that we are nature, okay, maybe we don't exploit ourselves. So already if we really think about that, it will change, and that's why indigenous populations, maybe like some of them, they are still here and they still think that they are nature, and they still have this balance of, okay, we live, and of course if I do something, it comes back to me. It's really mathematical. Like I take too many wood from the forest. Okay, next year I don't have wood enough to cook, and because I sell it my whole forest. The next year I don't have animals to hunt. You know, like it's automatic. If when you come back to here, you will see more that everything that we do, it comes back to us, and nature it has this balance that it continues to rebalance, and we can find back somehow this way. We can find back this equilibrium of giving and receiving. But yes, this is just my opinion about, like, because the concept of nature and as human being separated, it's something for me, like it's the key of this. But just
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
point.
I think
Point.
the good conclusion for all this discussion is that we understand that we are nature, and we are contributing our what we are doing. We are contributing to nature, so that nature contributes to what we need to, and it's beautiful. Thank you.
Was a very nice moment. Thank you. This knowledge
Thank you for
sharing.
listening. Let me happy. Also
Okay.
to show us also what is an environmental sociology, because
Mhm.
I thought